What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the shelf. Been a little bit, but Happy New Year. 2024, we made it. The years just keep flying by, don't they? Anyway, as the title would indicate, this is my top 10 of 2023. Been excited to do this video, but part of that excitement, every year it feels like, in the last weeks leading up to the first of the new year, I always feel like this pressure, this like scrambling, that I feel like I have to check every movie off my list from 2023. Otherwise the list won't be comprehensive. And I'm slowly starting to learn that like it's just really not feasible, you know. I'm never going to see everything that I want to see. So this is the list. It's pretty comprehensive. I really don't think there would be too many on my list of things that I want to see that have the potential to really crack into this top 10. So this is what it is. I'm sure some of you out there can relate. You know, there's always that feeling of like, yeah, you know, it's not really finished though, because, you know, I got to see all these other movies and blah, blah, blah. A few things. First, there will be some spoilers for these movies going in. So I'll try to have sections here for my rankings where if you don't want any spoilers, there'll be mild spoilers, but still spoilers nonetheless. You should be able to skip to the next placement if it's a movie that you don't want to know anything about. So look for that in the description. And then I'm also just going to run through my number 11 through 20 real quick. I'm not going to go in depth or anything. I didn't want to just choose 3 honorable mentions because honestly, all of these movies are like so close. They're pretty interchangeable as far as 11 through 20 goes. Also, I've seen 72 new releases from 2023, so these are really the cream of the crop, and I would recommend all of them, obviously. Coming in at number 20 is Cobweb, really underrated horror movie from this year. You should definitely check that out. Number 19 is Evil Dead Rise. Evil Dead franchise is all hits, no misses. Number 18 is Blackberry, one of the bigger surprises of the year. Great performance from Glenn Howerton. Definitely check it out. Coming in at 17 is Barbie. I really liked Barbie when I first saw it in theaters. Having the crowded theater helped for that. Watching it at home doesn't quite hit the same, but still good. Number 16 is Talk to Me. Really good horror movie, probably my favorite one of the year. It's very close though with Evil Dead, Cobweb, and also When Evil Lurks. Just barely missed the top 20. Number 15 is Beau is Afraid. Ari Aster's crazy 3-hour Odyssey. Didn't know if I liked this or not, admittedly, on first viewing, but it sat with me so much that I can't help but respect it and give it this high placement. Number 14, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Awesome action movie. Great cast. Everybody's so good in it. Great set pieces. Yeah, can't wait for the second one. Coming in at number 13 is The Boy and the Heron. Studio Ghibli. Hayao Miyazaki. Yeah, it's fantastic. Just go see it. Coming in at number 12 is The Killer. Really great David Fincher film. I feel like people are kind of split on this. Nobody really seems to love it. People have mostly kind of said that it's like mid-tier Fincher, but mid-tier Fincher is still like leagues better than most people's entire output. So then coming in at 11 is John Wick Chapter 4. I really hope this is the last John Wick. The way this ends is so good. And the movie is so good, and it's so epic, and it's the longest one out of the 4. It just, by all rights, this should be the last one. They really go out with a bang. This is the best one. It's the best John Wick movie, and hopefully it's the last one. So go see it if you haven't. All right, the top 10 proper. These are the cream of the crop, best movies of 2023. Pretty wide assortment, I would say. It was a great year for movies. I mean, I still got plenty to see, but that's what January and February are for, man. You know, like there's nothing coming out. So I really like to spend the next couple months catching up on all these movies. So, all right, coming in at number 10 is Bottoms. I'll admit, when I saw the trailer for this, it really didn't seem like it was going to be for me. Seemed like it was aimed for a generation a lot younger than me. But I still saw it because I like Rachel Sennett, and Ayo Edebiri has been having a great year. So I wanted to go see it for those two people. And then this wound up being so surprising because I was laughing consistently throughout this whole movie. And comedies, as we all know, are on a bit of a downswing. So yeah, this was so funny. It felt like it was actually written by somebody who, you know, is a millennial or is like, 20. The dialogue actually felt like it was written by Gen Z, but not to the point where it was like insufferable. It was actually very funny, and it made me like Gen Z more because of the depiction in this movie. And the comedy borders on like absurdism, and it doesn't play that hand until like right at the very end. But throughout it as well, it like does all these hilarious things that are subtle enough to where it doesn't immediately like make you go, huh? But like when you stop and think about it for a second, you're like, wait, why do the football players just wear their football uniforms 24/7? Like it's that kind of humor, and I really liked it. So bottoms, number 10. Coming in at number 9 is a latecomer. I just saw this right before the year ended. Was the Iron Claw. I was not a fan of wrestling at all. I had no idea about this family, about their true story. None of this was, knowledge to me. I went in pretty blind. And I had heard that this was a sad movie, and it very much is. So, we know that going in. But yeah, this is such an important movie because it has this incredible message behind it, which is, this thing that is so prevalent today, which is like destigmatizing, men's mental health and like the ability to cry in front of people. Something as simple as that. We've made great strides, in today's age, but it's still not quite where it needs to be. So you can only imagine where it was back in the 80s when this movie was taking place, and especially coming from Texas as well, which is where this family was from. It was just, these guys weren't allowed to feel emotions, basically. And yeah, terrible things happened. It's super sad, but it's so well done, and it pays so much respect to this tragedy-stricken family. Yeah, I think Iron Claw is just such an important movie, and if you're even remotely interested in it, you should definitely check it out. Zac Efron is amazing. He'll probably be snubbed at the Oscars this year, but he deserves all the recognition in the world, because not only is this performance very physical, but the amount of stuff going on behind just what you see behind his physique is just as good, if not better. So coming in at number 8 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I had a lot of animated films in like my top 20 this year, which is awesome to see, because typically I don't go for a ton of animation, specifically animation geared towards kids. But this really hits all 4 quadrants. It's Spider-Man, which is already sick. You've already got the first one from 2018. That one's sick, so you're like, okay, my ticket's bought for this. Day one, I'm there. And the animation is just as good, if not better, in some parts. Really what they've managed to achieve here is nothing short of incredible. That's really a lot of what you'll hear going into this movie, is just how breathtaking the animation is. I'm really glad I got to see this in a theater, because it really plays well in that setting. The music's incredible. Such an inspired choice to have Metro Boomin do the soundtrack for this, because a lot of the music is awesome, and it sounds like music that Miles Morales, a teenager, would listen to. So, it does double duty there, because it's, there are a lot of really catchy songs. It's earworms, but it's like diegetic too, because it works because it's playing in Miles's world as well. Like, he's actually listening to the same songs we are. So there's that level of, connectivity there, which is really cool. Ends on a cliffhanger. Pretty polarizing for some people. They feel let down by that. They feel cheated. I don't see it as being any different from the ending of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, where, you would still achieve a goal, but there's also more goals to be achieved. So there is a sense of finality to this. Gwen has a whole arc that resolves by the time the credits roll. So I could see some who really would rather watch like both back to back, this and the next one that's coming. And that'll probably elevate this one. So as it sits, some people might feel a little cheated by this one by, not getting the full story. For me, that didn't bother me. I don't mind waiting. I'll wait for things that are good and worth waiting for. So yeah. Coming in at number 7 is Killers of the Flower Moon. We're going to look back on this period of Scorsese's career and question why anybody even brought up things like box office or, the length of his movies. Like, the man is not going to be around for much longer. He's very aware of that. We're aware of that. And, you know, it reminds me of somebody like Francis Ford Coppola, who had to like spend $120 million of his own money to finance a movie that's coming this year, his dream project, Megalopolis. And just the fact that like those guys aren't going to be around forever. So we should be financing their movies while they're still around. You know, it's a travesty that Francis Ford Coppola should have to sell like half of his, you know, winery business. I don't know the specifics, but he self-funded that movie. We're getting it this year. You know, at the time of recording, it's not out yet. So like if Apple's going to finance this, why not finance, you know, Coppola, finance Brian De Palma, let all these guys, you know, who revitalized Hollywood, you know, in the beginning of the 70s, let them make their movies. You know, they're not going to be around forever. Anyway, that's a whole diatribe that doesn't really have to do with the movie, but worth mentioning. Yeah, technically speaking, there's really no flaws in Killers of the Flower Moon. Everybody is perfect. The setting is so well put to film. You know, all the costumes and the set dressing, it's all there. It's all great. The one thing that holds this back for me from being a 5 out of 5 and not just a 4 out of 5 is the length. 3.5 hours. Pretty long. No real getting around that. I like a long movie, but it really hinders your rewatchability once you cross that 3-hour mark for me. And then just the nature of the story, it's not exactly a pleasant watch, but that's the point. So for those reasons, I probably won't revisit this one too often, but that's a me thing and has nothing to do with the actual masterpiece that this movie is. The fact that Scorsese can still make movies like this at his age, the fact that Robert De Niro can give performances like the one he gives in this movie at his age, it's all things that should be celebrated, and let them continue to do this for as long as they're able to. So yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon is absolutely worth your time if you're a Martin Scorsese fan. Coming in at number 6 is Godzilla -1. This one was a huge surprise for me as well. It was on my radar, and when it came out, you started to hear all this great word of mouth. And that word of mouth is still carrying through today. The movie has made almost $100 million, I think, at the time of this recording. And it was made for like less than 15 million, which is crazy. But then you got to factor in like working conditions are a lot different in Japan than they are here, and a lot of stuff like that. Conversion rates, things like that. So what I will say is that the conversation around this movie that a lot of people will be saying is that it's a miracle how compelling they've made the human characters. It's awesome, the depiction of Godzilla as being this fearsome, you know, antagonist. He's not an ally, he's not there to help, which I think is what a lot of people like out of Godzilla, when he is this antagonistic force, and he's terrifying, and he's charging up his fucking atomic breath, and it's just so good. There's a lot of Jaws motifs here when they're in the water early on in the film, where they're trying to shoot the mine in his mouth. Really awesome stuff. This movie feels really classic and like timeless in a lot of ways. It has some sort of cliches that come up in the third act, but they work because it feels just so earnest and like heartfelt and meaningful. And it doesn't come across cheesy or anything like that. It earns that because the rest of the film is so, it just works so well. It's all working together to create this just awesome experience, and that's why it's had the great word of mouth that it's had. And yeah, I can't wait for the next one. Coming in at number 5 is Suzume. So Suzume is from Makoto Shinkai. He's the guy who brought us Your Name and Weathering with You. I haven't seen Weathering with You, but I have seen Your Name, and that movie is awesome. So when I heard that this new movie from him was coming to theaters for like less than a week or something, I really made sure to prioritize seeing it on my day off. And I will forever remember that movie-going experience because it was one of the best of the year for me. I was literally the only one in the theater. It was like the middle of the day, I think. You know, you get that feeling where you're sitting down and you're watching a new movie and you have a feeling it's going to be good, but you don't know quite how good it's going to be. And you're watching it and you're watching it and you're like, oh, I'm watching like a special one. Like these aren't coming out every week. These are special. And that's what Suzume is. Incredible animation, and just the way that they have these interpersonal relationships between the main characters, and they don't necessarily start out as like fully romantic. It's just like these two people who kind of happen upon each other and their paths become intertwined, and you know, they're off to the races. They're on this sort of journey together, and they don't really have a say in it, and you know, they begin to get to know each other, and things happen, and it's just such an awesome movie. I can't wait to watch it again. Definitely buying the Blu-ray when it comes out. If you've seen Your Name and you liked that movie, you will like Suzume. No question about it. Coming in at number 4 is Anatomy of a Fall. I'd been hearing about this movie for like 2-3 months. It has been premiering at festivals, which I'm not fortunate enough to go to, but it has been getting all this great buzz, and I had seen trailers for it, and I was so excited for it. Never came to any theaters near me, but I think in late November, it came to VOD, and it was like $5 rental, which is crazy because they should have been charging the full like $20 price, because this movie is fucking awesome. It's basically this courtroom drama, but I feel like to call it that is sort of reductive because it's doing a lot more than that. But what I will say is that it is 2.5 hours, and a large portion of it takes place in the courtroom, and it is some of the most engrossing just dialogue. Like, it's incredible that somebody was actually able to write this, because not only are a lot of the characters speaking in French, they're speaking in English, they're speaking in German, a lot of languages being spoken, specifically by the main actress, Sandra Hüller, I believe is how you say her last name. She's incredible. The script is incredible. Incredible child performance. I don't remember his name, but he is so good. I'll try to put a clip of him on screen right here. Great dog performance too by Snoop. But yeah, this movie is so good because it, first of all, spoiler, but like, this is not about, it's basically like trying to find out if the lead actress is guilty or not. But what's even more important than finding out if she did it or not is going through the process, you know, the real process of how you would prove it, you know, dissecting the motives. Like, that is the bulk of it. And it's not even important by the time the credits roll whether she actually did it or not. And that's the crazy thing about it, because you would think that by the end of this, you'd want to spend 2.5 hours and you want to know who did it, you know, if she actually did it. But you don't. You don't find out. And it's so much better for it, because the way that she plays it, you don't know. And it could go either way, and it is just so engrossing. The film plays with like perspectives a lot. You know, you'll hear flashbacks, but you also will see things through like televised broadcasts, because it's like a high profile trial. So you're seeing things through the lens of like a reporter's camera and stuff. You see things through the kid's perspective, through her perspective, through the lawyer's perspective, and it all serves to kind of create this jumbled sort of jigsaw puzzle where you're really not sure, like, there's no really reliable narrator, and that's what makes it so compelling. It was the fastest 2.5 hour movie I've seen all year, so definitely watch Anatomy of a Fall. It was so good. Coming in at number 3 is Poor Things. This is another one that I'd been hearing about for a while. Didn't come to my theaters until like mid-December. I feel like I was the last person in my sort of film circle to get to see this one, but it was so worth the wait. It was pretty hyped up for me, so I was a little worried it wouldn't live up to that hype, but it definitely did, if not exceeded it. It's directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, who is one of the most fascinating directors working today. Some of his movies don't really necessarily work for me. This one feels the most approachable to a general audience. This one feels the most accessible. And that's saying something, because this movie's fucking wild. It's set in this sort of like Victorian era London, but it's got like elements of like steampunk in it, and just like there's this otherworldliness to it, and you can tell right away that it's not trying to be like our version of this place. It's very much like an alternate sort of place. There's a sort of wrongness to everything, down to like the costuming and, you know, the way that their technology is. It's very interesting. So like right away visually you're getting this impression of what this world is. And it does so much great world building by showing you things rather than like explaining to you like, oh, this is, you know, it doesn't spell things out, and it helps you to get sucked into the movie. So without telling you really a ton about it, basically it follows Emma Stone, and she has been sort of reborn, but she has the body of an adult but the mind of a child, and she basically has to learn and adapt and figure out how to be an adult, and it happens very rapidly. So right away I get this sort of impression that there is an intended analogy for like having to grow up too fast, which is probably something that a lot of women today deal with. So before long, she has to go out and leave the safety net of her home, and she has to go out into the world and sort of discover who she is, because she's not going to be content to just stay here forever. So there's something true to life there as well. And so she goes on this sort of odyssey, and on the way she meets a lot of different people. And all the different people that she meets represent these sort of different ideals and like the way people approach life. So like Willem Dafoe is her father. He's the one who like created her, without getting into specifics, but he sort of approaches life through like this blunt, scientific, like analytical, like fact. That's how he sort of looks at things. And then she meets this other guy played by Rami Youssef, I think is his name, and he's very earnest. He's very he wants permission to do things. He's not looking to take advantage. And then there's Mark Ruffalo, who is incredible in the movie, and he sort of embodies just like the worst person you've ever met. He's very narcissistic and sort of a glutton for just consuming and gambling and all that sort of thing. So he's very much she learns these things from him and takes what she needs from him, and then sort of moves on. And then she meets all these other people, and they all sort of leave their mark on her in different ways, and she's able to kind of take all the best parts of them and apply that to her, how she wants to look at life. And it's all very interesting and fascinating, and the look of the movie's incredible. It does this sort of fisheye lens thing for a lot of it. The costumes are incredible. Just the look of the movie's gorgeous. Emma Stone's phenomenal. Everyone in this movie is great. This was an incredible movie. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it, and I already want to see it again. So, poor things. We're into the top two now. And for a while, I kind of went back and forth on these movies. They're very interchangeable. They both hit me like a freight train, and I love them both. And for a while, I didn't think my number two would ever be surpassed, but it was. And honestly, that's a great thing, because if you see your favorite movie of the year in like May, that's kind of disappointing. Like, you want it to be dethroned, right? And that's what happened here with my number two, Past Lives. Yeah, this movie follows these two kids, and they sort of develop this quick friendship and this relationship as kids. And the girl, played by Greta Lee, has to move away, leaving behind, any kind of potential life that she might have had with this guy. Fast forward, they eventually rediscover each other, they reconnect. They sort of open up that wound again, where they go through the motions of like, I want to come visit you, I want to see you again, we want to reconnect, but life gets in the way, which is sort of the big theme of this movie, where you have this romanticized idea of how you'd like things to be, but the cold, sort of harsh nature of reality sets in, and we kind of realize that what we want is not exactly what is going to happen. And, the way this movie handles it is so delicate, it's so awesome. It's so refreshing, because John Magaro plays the husband of Greta Lee's character. And they sort of have this sort of relationship where he's fully aware of like how this guy is her husband's sort of long lost love. And they comment on it in almost a meta sort of way, where he makes a comment, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically says, it's not like you're going to run away with him. If this were a book, I would be, the evil husband, telling you that you can't be with him. That's what I appreciate most about the movie, is that it sort of acknowledges all those tropes that in a lesser movie, Greta Lee would would run away from her husband, divorce him to be with this guy, but that's just not the way that life works. And those are my favorite kinds of movies that feel like they're about real people and real things that could happen. And especially if it's a romantic movie, like a love story, I love movies where the romance is unrequited and it doesn't happen and you're crushed by that, but in that crushingness is, you know, that's humanity, that's life, that's love. It's so awesome. And the ending of this movie left me in tears, and it was just so awesome and so good. Yeah, just watch this movie. It's incredible. If you like movies like Her with Joaquin Phoenix and Before Sunrise, movies like that, maybe Brokeback Mountain, this sort of shares some DNA with those, so I would definitely recommend Past Lives. But coming in at number 1 is The Holdovers. This movie feels like a movie that was like ripped out of the 70s and given to us in the year 2023. Yeah, this movie just feels like a warm hug. It's technically a Christmas movie, so I'll definitely be watching this every December before then as well, because it's just so good. It deals with these themes of like father and son relationships, grief and loss, and finding companionship where you would least expect it, which is what happens with our 3 leads. Paul Giamatti, Dominic Sessa, and Davine Joy Randolph. They make up the trio of main characters, and they're all so great in their roles, and they sort of form this bond together that is like so pure and like effortless, and it just sort of happens without any of them realizing it, and you're watching it on screen and it's playing out and you're like, you almost can't believe how touching and awesome it is. I mean, I feel like I say that word a lot for these movies where it feels like reductive to describe it as awesome, but that's how it's like. It's like revelatory. Like finally, like we're just, I can't help but appreciate when we get movies like this because they're so simple and they feel like they're about real people and real characters, and that's the stuff that I really love. That's what I fucking lose it for, is movies that make me feel like you know, these could be real people and these are real things that happen, and there's a real sense of like earnestness. That's another word that comes up a lot, is when, you know, there's nothing wrong with like actually being genuine. I feel like that's something we're like losing a lot, where it's like not okay to be sincere and like feel things, but that's what I love movies for, man. That's what I like. If I can get that out of a movie, you're in my top, you're in the pantheon of, you know, my favorite movies. So anyway, yeah, Holdovers is my number 1 movie of the year. Well, that's it, guys. That is 2023 wrapped up. Now we gotta, you know, get through January. Not a lot on the horizon, so I will be catching up on 2023 releases as we head into Oscar season. Lots of foreign films I still have to see that I would like to see. In the comments, let me know which of my top 10 you liked, which ones you didn't like, which ones do you feel are missing. I know a lot of you are probably going to point out the absence of Oppenheimer and possibly Asteroid City. Those are great movies. They just barely missed my top 20. Again, it was a stacked year, and admittedly, I do need to revisit Oppenheimer. There's a chance it could go up, but there's just never enough time to revisit all these movies to make sure your rankings are really set in stone. So you don't need me to tell you how great Oppenheimer is. I'd rather take the time to spend talking about some of these other, perhaps less, more unsung movies. Yeah, leave your rankings in the comments. I'd love to see them. With that in mind, take care, have a happy new year, and watch more movies.